so much mellow. Oh man, these songs are amazing. Except the name of this song is Ambien. Isn't that the name of a medication that helps you sleep? Anyway, hello, and welcome to another One Line of Code. I am One Lion. Happy Friday. Look at those little duckies. Those little big gamey emotes. I love those. Those are awesome. Scott with the rainbow gummy bear. So hi Scott, hi Dukasoft. Hello anyone that is out there. Ooh, it's Friday. Friday on this stream means Community Day. Man, I can't believe it's Friday, to be honest. It doesn't really feel like a Friday. For anyone that is new to what Community Day is, Community Day is a time on our channel when I spend more time focusing on chat, topics that you guys bring up that are relevant to the stream's content, and projects that you're working on. And overall lots and lots. What you will hear during this stream are lots and lots of opinions that we will have, and we'll say them confidently, but note that everything that we say should be taken as an opinion, and you should definitely do the research, make sure that it works for your situation, that you agree with it, disagree with it, whatever. And if you do disagree with it, feel free to speak up. Tell us what your thoughts on whatever topic we're talking about are, as long as you remain respectful towards others, and state your opinions as opinions as well, confidently, but still as opinions. But anyway, let's get started. Normally the other thing that I do on Community Days is to... Is that the other streamer message? Where's my marquee for other streamers? Hello, disclaimer? There it is. Everything we say is right and should be trusted as absolute. Absolutely wrong. See, that's just an opinion. You could be right. We'll just go into a catch loop. You know what? I don't know why you aren't yet. I need to go to what? Where do I need to go? Twitch? Stream? Community? This one. And you. Save. No idea why it took me this long to do this, but Dukasoft. tbdgamer. I just made you a VIP. So if you don't already know tbdgamer, tbdgamer is an amazing streamer, developer, person, human, dog owner, etc., etc. Definitely check out his streams. He's working on an application called Liquid Sky, which is a project management and planning application, kind of like Jira, kind of like Azure DevOps, but more focused on the actual development process than just writing things down to write things down. VIP gamer, verifiable, idempotent. Wait, independent. I was gonna call you idempotent potato. That says independent. Congratulations on being a VIP. You've been a VIP for a long time, Scott. You've been a VIP since like 1832. When did I start streaming? I think it was like in 1640. And then Scott joined around 1825 and then didn't become a VIP until it was 1832. That's what it was. You're right. Anyway. So, I didn't start everything that I needed to start, but the voice channel is open. If you are interested in participating in Community Day by using your voice, I have a voice channel in Discord that you can, that you will be pulled into after you join any of the existing voice channels that you can see, and then in chat type !waiting. Then I'll pull you into that room You'll mute the stream and listen to everything through Discord. I have my camera running on Discord so that you can see my screen if it's convenient for you. Of course, you can always watch the stream for the video and get the little bit of lag. But if you don't want to use your voice, you can still participate in Community Day simply by chatting. This goes for either platform, YouTube, Twitch. We should be seeing it in both places. TBD, one last thing to check. I know that you said that you went through the same process that I went through. Mine is, of course, still working. At least it looks like it's still working. I haven't actually tried to chat from YouTube. Tacos. Yes, okay. But the one thing that I noticed today when I was doing this is I forgot to mention one step, which is after connecting with Restream, and I have the chat client. So I use restream.io to do the connection. But when I am in Restream, oh no, I guess I do have to do it through restream.io. I thought I could do it here. App.restream.io. I have this thing open, and I went to channels, edit, and then I had the drop down here, and I had to choose the community day. Again, I think you've already said that you just don't even have the option in this drop down, but just to verify, that was the last thing that I forgot to say I do. But I do have to have this open in order for it to work. Thank you, Scott, for the test. It does take like an extra couple seconds for the chat to come from YouTube. I mean, it's so weird because it looks like the chat goes to YouTube pretty instantly. Yeah, I normally do that, but it's stopped offering me that now. Yeah. So again, I do the whole... I delete it from here, start the event on YouTube, reconnect here, and then edit, choose the event from the dropdown. It is kind of an annoying process, but I mean, it doesn't take too long. I'm going to figure out just how annoying it is, because after the community day stream, I am going to do my workday stream until the end of my workday, which will be 15:30 Mountain Daylight Time, which is UTC -7 currently. So that means another 3 hours. Well, I'll probably take a break and then 3 hours, 2.5 hours of regular workday stream. But anyway, I think I was saying that if you aren't interested or aren't comfortable using your voice to participate in Community Day, just chat. Just type out your comments, your topics that you want to discuss in chat. If you want to share anything about projects you've been working on, you have questions about things you're doing, this is a great place to start seeking input from talented developers. Yeah. Is it a talent show? Yes, we can also do a talent show. I'm typically wanting the conversations to be along the lines of software development, at least up front. But if you do want to sing, I will encourage that. And hello, RADIOPATRICK. How have you been? RADIOPATRICK. RADIOPATRICK is working on a radio website. Surprise, surprise. And is working on back-end and front-end type stuff. So if you're interested in seeing that, definitely check him out. I'll sing, but your viewership will fall sharply. I mean, like, people will be here if they want to be here. I'm not too worried about the numbers. I really, really appreciate you being here, and I'm glad. I wouldn't be able to get as much out of this as I do without you guys, but I mean, if viewership falls, then it falls. I want creativity to be allowed and flowing. The thing that I try to stifle is putting each other down and being disrespectful towards each other, etc., etc. Okay. Right. So the thing that I was wanting to do with the bot, oh yeah, the other thing that I do on community day is I work on the bot remake. Right now I'm working on my actual bot that is there in chat. You can see it, you can talk with it, just at Automated Realms. How are you today? And the LLM will receive the message, kick in, and provide a response. And then there are a few commands that you can run. I don't have an easy way to display the commands list at present. That's maybe one thing we can add to the new bot, but we have only the stream elements commands that you can go to, most of which are disabled now, I think. tbdgamer says, so fun fact, that longer stream I promised next Friday, not gonna be quite so long. Guess when they wanted to schedule my surgery consult? Oh man. On Sunday, the 25th, April of 2026. Am I close? Yeah. Well, hope you just don't need surgery in the end. Hope by the time surgery comes around, it's already been healed. You're good to go. They'll take one more look at it before they start surgery, and they'll be like, actually, I wanted to do surgery, but I just don't feel right doing surgery on something that's already healed. All right. Okay, so in working on the bot, something that I did recently, I mean, I'll leave that up to you, TBD. It's not impossible, is all I'm trying to say. But up to you to decide that. The bot. I added something to the archery game that gives you extra points for how long the arrow stays in the air. So this is bonus, which is the how long does the animation run, which is how long does the arrow stay in the air, essentially, divided by 300. So you get 1 point for every 1/3 second, essentially. I mean, rounding, of course. So 1 point per third of a second, and so the longer it stays in the air, the more bonus points you get. Then I updated the message that we're sending to the bot in order to summarize what happens as a result of your archery attempts. So if I type !pew 80, what was BitGamey doing, man? I'm learning from BitGamey how to play this game. He is amazing at it. That was a little short. Let's try 60. Watch this be too far. Oh, jeez. Oh, nope. Will it ever come back down? I don't want to come back down from the 29. So, archery bot, Automated Realms, are you going to give me a message back on how I did? You know what? Automated Realms didn't even respond to queuing up. Why didn't you respond to queuing up, Automated? Oh, I know why. Oops. I was doing some testing with the bot earlier, or with the archery game, and I turned off relaying the messages to chat. Whoops. I could move the target on you. I could just push this button right here, set random distance. I'm gonna move the target. I'm gonna move the target. I'm gonna move the... Ready? Click. kidding. I'm not going to move the target on you. And it says, hey, Scott. How to become a snail. How do I get the job of snail sleep watcher to verify this seems like easy money? I need to get the debug stuff off screen real quick. I was too distracted by TBD's question to automated realms. So the way that you get the job of snail sleep watcher, you'll need to first acquire a PhD in snailology. Then you'll need to apply for a grant from the National Snail Research Foundation. After that, you'll need to find a suitable habitat for the snails and finally observe them for a period of 3 years. Good luck on your journey. It seems that Irish Just Smug has passed gas to Ubisoft. I can't confirm if it was intentional or not, but it's definitely a funny situation. You're being a little extra today. Oops, this one. Automated realms. Dark mode engaged. Thank you for reminding me. So, I added the bonus score as one of the things to pass as the information. But what I think I want to do is pass a table. Pass the results as a table that will look like player. Well, I guess I can keep the player name. Attempt number, distance traveled, hit target, scores, impact force scores, bonus, and total. Yes. Okay, so essentially what I want then is a class that will represent this object. What is my favorite anime? That's a great question, Gabriel. There are quite a few that I like. I haven't watched any recently, which is really odd. The most recent one that I watched and really, really liked was Jujutsu Kaisen, obviously. Ergo Proxy was strange, but I really liked it. Chrome Shelled Regios was good. One of my favorite mind messing with you anime is Code Geass. My daughter is obsessed with Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah. Psycho-Pass was good. I like that one a lot. You know what? I have a list in case I get asked about which animes I enjoyed and liked. Where's my... Because I can never remember on the spot. To watch. Anime. Another anime list? Oh yeah. Duh. The obvious ones, Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, the original Mobile Suit Gundam. Witch Hunter Robin has to rank up there as one of my favorites of all time. Trigun, the original, the new one was okay. It wasn't terrible. It was okay. Harlock, especially the CG movie of Captain Harlock. Darker Than Black was good. Wolf's Rain, which I tried Wolf's Rain when I was younger, and I was like, I can't get into this. And then I watched it recently, and I'm like, I was missing out. I loved Wolf's Rain. The original Orphan, Full Metal Alchemist, and Brotherhood. I already said that was Footy Cootie. Footy Cootie was just really weird, but I don't know. Something about it drew me in. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Link Click. If you haven't seen Link Click, that one is, in my opinion, again, everything we say here is in my opinion, was really, really good. Not the greatest animation style, but the aesthetic of it was still really pleasing. What's going on, Big Gamey? How are you doing? Sengoku Basara, Guilty Crown, Sword of the Stranger, Garden of Words, Onamae, Your Name. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas was surprisingly really good. These are all like drama, character focused type anime, if you couldn't tell. Erased, Anohara, Honey and Clover, Miss Hokusai, Paprika. Paprika is probably my #1 mind. The one that messes with your brains. Grimgar, which I recently watched. So I watch Saturday morning cartoons, in air quotes. On Saturdays, the first things as part of my routine are to get out of bed, make my coffee, and sit down and watch an episode of anime. Right now it's Frieren. But Grimgar, I started watching that during that time. Ended up liking it. It was cool. The first season of Sword Art Online, Death Parade, Moriarty the Patriot was really cool. I love the psychological anime, if you couldn't tell. Especially ones that feature INTJs. And then the ones that are just like fun, kind of guilty, fun anime. Stride. It's one of those sports anime. This one's about cross country, or I guess all types of track type of running, which includes some parkour style stuff, and I don't know, it was really fun. Free, the one that started off as a commercial with some characters and they were like, oh my gosh, why isn't this an anime? So then they turned it into an anime. And Yuri on Ice, I will admit to it. And then all the ones that I don't really want to admit out loud that I used to like and maybe still like a little bit. Naruto, if you can get through all the fluff. Naruto Shippuden, same. Boruto. Don't judge me. Actually, do judge me. All of the early Dragon Ball. I don't really enjoy them much anymore. Like, I used to rewatch the entire Dragon Ball series, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but I can't, I just don't enjoy it as much anymore because of the new stuff that I've watched. Demon Slayer for a while, and then I kind of got tired of it. I got burnt out. The Rising of Shield Hero, I really did like quite a bit. Cyborg 009, the original, really, really liked, but don't really like it as much anymore. Inuyasha, Rurouni Kenshin. I really liked the Rurouni Kenshin remake, where it was pretty much the original anime except updated graphics, updated animation, I guess. Tenchi Muyo, all 16,000 versions of it from that universe. And Blue Gender, even though it was really hard for me to watch because gore and stuff, it was pretty good. And that's my list. That's what I wrote down. Feel free to tell me your list if you want. And then for anyone else, it's like, anime. You can definitely bring up topics about software development. Like this. tbdgamer is in the waiting room in 3, 2, 1. Hello.
Hello.
Why did I say Naruto is shameful? Because there's so much fluff. So much fluff. Anyway, can you do another mic check? I have you turned down quite a bit for some reason. Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. my boldest introduction.
Actually, I think you're just mumbling.
Yes, probably. I do have a headache. I've been suffering with a headache today.
No.
So,
Would it be easy to implement a high score? Let's do it. High score for each player. But what's going on, TBD, other than your headache?
not much. I'm currently trying to figure out. So when a software platform has so much technical debt that the people want you to make it better, but they don't want to take bold steps. But our mission statement is be bold. And it's probably why I've got the headache. It's probably I'm just stressed with this. So I had a meeting and I proposed some things, and some were kind of just clean the code up maybe, and some were a little bit more, well, okay, let's break it out a little bit and make it a little bit, stronger. And I asked, hey, can we give some rough estimations as to what we think of the effort here? And it was complete silence. And that's like the second meeting I've had now where everything I've said has been greeted with complete silence and apathy. But I'm meant to ask these people to give sizing and effort because it's their developers that are going to be working on these things. And it's frustrating because I'm meant to be doing these things, and I don't know that it doesn't reflect badly on me that I can't get any sort of buy-in. So software development is not easy.
Yeah. Like even as a solo developer, I have the same internal conflicts where it's like, let's improve this app, but while you're doing it, don't make massive changes. Because if I make massive changes on these projects that existed before I got here, I'm somehow disrespecting the people that came before me. I'm going to break systems that I won't be able to bring back up. Other fears. And I really, really like your evangelism on you shouldn't be afraid to change code.
No, you shouldn't. Because when it gets harder, if you're scared of changing the code, if you're making decisions like that, you continue to make decisions to avoid damaging the code. But by not damaging the code, you likely recreate pieces, or we'll just copy and paste this so we don't screw with that. But it's kind of the same, but it's not the same. But it reads the same because you leave all the comments and stuff when you paste it into the piece. I had and I think you make the code worse by being afraid of the code. So
yes.
So we're at the point where I want to be bold. I want to take bolder steps. However, bolder steps come with risk that I don't think people are willing to take.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I ended up doing with the rule engine thing was this new effort, which is essentially a greenfield app when you look at it that way.
Yes.
I was approaching it the same way that I approach any other app that I do, which is start writing code. Plan a little bit. I have so much in mind that I want it to do, and I have a vision of the direction that I want to go, so start writing code. And then I ran into the situation where there's so much code, I don't know what does what. And so I tried to map it out, and then people were like, tests. Actually, I was like, tests, and people were like, yeah, tests. I'm like, but I don't know how to do tests. It'll take me longer to do tests. And that was my wrong, incorrect assumption. And now I wish I started with the tests. I so wish I started with tests.
I honestly feel that sometimes this attitude we have as like people judging how you're doing something prevents us from doing something because we feel that we might be doing it wrong, therefore why bother doing it?
True.
And I really think that it's like the Kubernetes stuff, right? We had someone in today asking me all sorts of questions, and the honest answer was, I don't know, I'm just kind of muddling through this and getting through it. But you know, I was talking with Mojo about like design of Liquid Sky and like visual design and UI UX stuff. And I said, I don't want to go to someone and say, hey, here's thousands of dollars, because my wife would kill me if I go and spend thousands of dollars on an application I'm building on stream, right? But I don't want to go to someone and say, here's this thing, give me a design and build the perfect application for me, and then be finding that I'm struggling with, oh, well, how, I don't like that piece, or I don't like that piece. So what I want to do is find someone I can bring on and talk to and learn what I don't know, so I can ask the right questions and grow into that thing, and understand more as I go by. And the same thing applies to this with the Kubernetes stuff. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what questions I need to ask. I can't, I'm not a, let's go off and read the entire handbook on Kubernetes. Let's go and read the entire handbook on Pulumi. A, that doesn't make for great stream content. B, you will see me yawn a lot and probably fall asleep on stream, which is probably not healthy, right? But building that knowledge, building the, oh, I don't know this, what does this term mean? And even if I have to hand that over to DevOps later, and again, in the UI UX perspective, when I start to talk to someone and ask questions and get that feedback cycle working, I know what I'm asking for. I know what things I'm evolving that vocabulary. And the same thing with tests. I think you need to write some tests with what you know now, evaluate the value, and then when someone says, oh, you're doing that wrong, why am I doing that wrong? Oh, because it doesn't test this. Oh, yeah, I see it now. I see why this is valuable, and be able to change it. And I think we've got to be willing to change what we've done.
Absolutely. And
not just, but well, no, I did it. It's fine. It works for me.
I'm only agreeing with that so emphatically because it is what I just did, and I feel like it was so beneficial in the long run. Like all of these.
Yeah.
Oh.
In general, I don't think we should be afraid of tackling things, even if we don't know a lot about them, just to try and, you know, grow. So.
Agreed. What am I looking for?
That being said, I do want to get back to development of Liquid Sky.
Yeah. too much time spent on trying to just get it to deploy.
But I'm so far away from getting the deployment working. I'm like, okay, well, now I've got Kafka there. I can't validate that the Kafka is going to work until I get a service there. Oh, well, now I need to bring this other thing in. Oh, there we go. There's another dependency I brought about. And now it's like, oh, well, now I've got to configure that. So I'm going to do as much of that stuff as I can off stream. But again, I still want to share the journey. But yeah, I'm not sure DevOps is the realm I want to go down.
Yeah, it's so weird. To go on what you just said. Hello, Mojo. I found that recently, all the things that I start off saying, man, I really, really hate doing UI. Man, I really, really don't like writing tests because I always get too nitpicky about what I should test and how to test and how to write the tests. That it's just more work than actually doing it. But then when I'm actually doing it, it's a lot of fun. And I'm like, man, this is extremely enjoyable. I love working in Figma. I'm not great at it, but it's so much fun. I love writing tests. Not great at it, but I love it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we benefit from the dopamine hit when we succeed at things as well. So when you're writing unit tests and you validate a case and you realize it catches something that you would potentially have missed or whatever, then it's very rewarding and it just keeps moving you forward. I don't like the fact that for the past couple of days I've succeeded in what I was trying to do, right at the end of the stream and been able to move on, but then not been able to move on because I'm going to end the stream and move on onto work
your
stuff.
work day.
That's been extremely frustrating because it's a complete mental shift away to what I'm doing on stream.
Absolutely. I completely understand that part, because when I was streaming the Finance Man project and then needing to get back to work and doing the context switching in my brains, it's like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yeah. But that being said, I would, if I were not streaming, I would be playing a video game, or I would be tinkering with stuff anyway. So the context switch is still going to be there no matter what I do.
My version of that right now is music. I'm in Fruity Loops. I'm doing something music related. Yeah.
I'm gonna try and convince my daughter to help me this weekend with moving my room around and getting the equipment set up so I can stream in a more comfortable position. Because my gaming PC is sat to my right, but my monitor to my right blocks some of that. So to sit there, I have to lean slightly, otherwise I'm going to catch a monitor to the face if I move. Because I have the desk at 90 degrees, and yeah. And the dogs like to sit down there as well, so I get to sit back. I do want to do more game streams on the weekends.
I'm gonna start someday, during the times that I have set aside for music, to start streaming that on a different channel.
Yeah. And you know, some people might disagree with using a different channel, but I don't want to pull people into normally a development stream by, look, I'm playing Eve, or I'm playing Gran Turismo, or I'm playing, you know, whatever video game I feel like playing at that point. Because I think that's just kind of, if the audience wants to follow, then I'll promote, but it's not like like you're gonna see me go streaming and then expect to be looking at Kubernetes and see Gran Turismo.
Factorial. You're gonna get sucked into it.
No, you won't see me playing Factorial. Every time my friend comes over and we play games like we sometimes play Satisfactory. Last weekend we played Sea of Thieves, which was a lot of fun. But he comes over and every time he's like, play Factorio. I don't want to play Factorio. I've got a server. Play Factorio. I don't want to play Factorio. I don't want to get that involved in a game. That said,
I don't think I could play games like that anymore.
I can, but I feel very unproductive, and I feel very guilty when I start spending a day playing a video game. Unless I'm just feeling generally worn down, in which case, like I spent a day playing Gran Turismo the other week, but even that wears thin after a while, because there's only so many times I can crash into a wall in a game before it hurts my ego slightly. Like I watch people race and I'm like, I can do that. That was so easy. Like I can race like that, and it's like bang, 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 crash.
That's how I feel when I'm watching artists, like people doing drawing, and they're just like, you know, just doing wispy lines everywhere and circling a spot 16 times and then coloring it in later and making it detailed. And I'm like, I could do that. And then I start trying and I'm like, why isn't this starting to look like what they're doing?
And you know, when we become expert at something, we forget, and that's why it's hard for someone who has a lot more experience to necessarily put themselves in the shoes of someone who hasn't, because they've forgotten, you know, the phrase "I've forgotten more than you'll ever know." No, you've forgotten what it was like to be, you know, struggling along and trying to learn in that way. So, you know, when we stream dev, people look at the code we're writing and they think, wow, that's like magic. We were like that one day.
Yeah. I still am a lot of times. I'm like, you just go in and start messing with these services, and I have no idea what they are, and you're just rattling them off, and you're like, you just put it in there, configure it.
Because, you know, again, because I've done something you haven't, and you do the same thing, right? We forget that perspective sometimes, and it's the same with everything. You know, people who know what they're doing make it look easy, and that's when imposter syndrome kicks in. When you are concerned, like, I was just making it up as I go along and just making it look easier.
I'm going to ask you for suggestions on this. So I'm wanting to change the way that I feed the information to the bot after an archery round. And I just found out that an archery round object has the list of attempts, and each attempt has the launch result with it. So I can get all of the data I need for down here. Should I create a new object for the way that I'm going to feed the data to the bot? So I'm thinking of making an archery result with the table data, essentially. Or should I just put the table data together using the existing? Because like it's either create a new object with only the properties that are going to be in the table data, or modify the archery round, which I have no idea where that is. Archery round. Did I create a whole bunch of models for this and not actually put them in the models?
So hold on, an archery round.
Is the three, the 3 attempts. Well, however many attempts you get, because it's not always 3. It's based off of how you've configured the game.
Right, but in the current settings, we're talking about an archery round represents the because there were some values on that archery round thing that looked
we'll look at it,
confusing.
Okay. And this one is even worse than my usual stuff. Okay, so this is archery round.
So what does target anything have to do? Or target height, distance, and elevation is it's allocated where it's put the target on the screen.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
And then the list of attempts, and each attempt is, here's when it was attempted, which attempt number is it, and then what parameters did they specify, and what was the result of trying it. Okay. And then the launch result is which chatter was it for, how far did it travel, how long was it in the air. Jeez. Close.
Mojo trying to send the arrow to the next county.
Yeah. Pew. I really like that sound effect. Oh, nice. Impact force, I don't think I actually calculated. Yeah, I'm not actually using it, but I thought it would be cool. Like 2 things that you could get bonus scores on. How long was it in the air, and how hard did you hit the target? And then maybe do some cool little animation. If you hit the target at 100 force, make it explode or something. Greater than some threshold.
Oh. What?
92.
What positions?
Positions is how I do the animation. So at time t, where is the arrow and what direction is it facing?
Okay.
And that's my frames per second, essentially. So the animation is actually a whole bunch of divs with an animation offset of time t.
Right. So what's that got to do with the result?
Good question. It was the easiest way for me to get the information into the UI. So launch result, arrow flight animation, and this is where the frames per second happen. So I guess it's a view model is why.
So it's pulling dual purpose.
Yeah. And I wouldn't know how to refactor that. But it is something that we could refactor when we are putting it into the new bot. Definitely. But for now, I just need to know how to, where should I put the information for the score generation, the score information that I'm giving to the bot. So instead of this big long blurb here, turning the archery round into a table, into a markdown table. Oh my goodness, hiccups. That looks like this. Oof. And high score. That one's going to be a little harder because I would need to get that from the database or persistent storage, wherever that happens to be, a file, whatever. You should ask Automated Realms, not me, because I don't know.
So what was your first thought here? To create
My first thought was, yeah, create a model for this output with maybe a helper method for transforming an archery round into this, or create a method on archery round that is generate results table.
Well, they create a results table object that took an archery round.
Or that, yeah, the constructor takes an archery round.
And then it put it into that format, so it's doing the formatting rather than vice versa.
I agree with that.
Because it's an output.
Yes.
So in that way, you've got kind of a display format concept of a round without putting display into the round itself. I was shy away from merging the two concepts. If I know that something's going to be display, I keep it display, and if I know something's going to be data, keep it data. Yeah.
Cool. So you agree with, or you are in favor of creating a new model that represents this data and has a constructor that takes the archery round.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh man. Moving goalpost, never. So you were trying to read the comments earlier, but it looks like the majority of them were like Dukasoft did respond or did comment on your statement about how the people are telling you make improvements but don't change stuff or don't make big changes.
Yeah.
And then BitGamey was talking about his new emotes, or actually Dukasoft was pointing out BitGamey's new emotes, and then BitGamey said that he's going to add a couple more new emotes, which is going to be awesome. I love the ducks, and he made them because we're his rubber ducks.
Emotes, that requires creative people.
Bob Ross created the only 2 emotes that I have, and then my wife created one from throwing things together and playing around with something, and I've desired to create emotes, and every time that I've tried, like one of them was the Sihu and Sichu cat. I don't know if you can really see them. Let's go to Hollow Scene. So the orange tabby furthest over, and then the gray tabby are Sichu and Sihu, which means something somewhere. Yeah, so I was thinking of making them like mascots or something, because I love cats.
I'm a dog person, but I've met some good cats.
I've met a couple good cats. Most of them are just moody and snobby. That's what I love about them.
I had a roommate once. His cat was violent. He didn't treat it violently. He loved the cat. Like it wasn't like it was mistreated, but the cat had an attitude, and it would walk up to you and just slap you in the face at full pace. It was terrifying.
It's not violent. It's just saying, "Oi, pet me."
Yeah,
it's time to pet me.
It was quite scary.
Oh man, it's terrible. Cats should not do that. Yeah, that's another thing that I want to fix on the remake is the audio only plays for the first arrow that you shoot when you're shooting it at, well, just the launch thing only. Shoot, burb. It's okay if someone else wanted to play and you were AFK. If the timeout went down and they were queued, then it would be their turn. I don't know if these are all supposed to be internal. I think this is... No, they're not, because...
Interesting question now. Plural in the object.
Oh, yes. All right. The results themselves are the things that are getting modeled. So the entire set of results. That's why I would use plural here. It's not a single result. It is the results. Well, what's your take?
Well, you are trying to the result of the round.
Of the round is what I'm trying to model.
The result has many statistics that come from it, right? They're stats more than anything, right? That would be my argument.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's valid, and I agree with it.
It's funny. This is. It might seem like a really simple thing, but it can actually change your perspective of what you think of, right?
Because like this could be results list of attempt, for example, and that would be more accurate.
Yeah.
But it really is just a result of a single round, even though there are multiple results within that round, but they are statistics in it.
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Not prop.
Napalm, hello.
Hi, Napalm. So guess what I've been doing, Napalm? I said it in TBD stream first thing in the morning. Like, I kind of feel like Napalm when a month or two ago he came in and every day he was like, guess what I'm doing? Unit testing. Well, unit and integration, but yes. What are we taking here? Archery round?
Yeah, maybe archery round and then generate a result. Primary constructors are awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be the only constructor, so...
Yeah.
Great. Wait, is that not what you're green for? Oh, it's unused. I was like, I don't remember turning on generate XML or generate documentation. Whatever. I may get to implement FIDO and biometric auth for the first time ever soon. I almost had the opportunity. I definitely had the opportunity to try FIDO, to try using FIDO. FIDO approach, is that what it's called? But I left the company before I used it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
No. I've not messed with auth stuff. It's enough. It's another one of those areas where I've gone deep enough to understand what I need to know right now, and then I can if I need to implement auth, I can become more expert at that at the right time. And RADIOPATRICK, before he goes off screen, yeah, primary constructors, they're referred to as.
Oh, yes. Yes. So the longhand version of this is CTOR that takes a this, and then you assign a private field. But in .NET 7, C# 11, C# 10, one of those two, they introduced a way to shorthand this. Oops. Oh, and remove fields. To where you can just do that. If it's the only constructor. I don't think you can use this in conjunction with a parameterless constructor. Oh man, I have a hair inside of my shirt. It's tickling my belly. Can't see it. Oh, .NET 8 and C# 12? What? I was only a little off. Still overly excited about object initializers instead of constructor calls. Object initializers. Like when you do a public property and you initialize it this way?
Yeah.
Or and then you oh, that's what you mean. Okay. So when you're using it, when you're creating a public void some method var archery round equals new archery round, and then you do an initializer like this. Got it.
Yeah.
What is, since you're on the line, TBD, you're in the hot seat, what is your take on always using parentheses after your new? I mean, we know that this one has to have an argument, so I have to use parentheses, but imagine a parameterless constructor. No parents, yes parents.
I don't know which side I fall there. I mean, I'll probably do it by default, but I'll probably remove them when it tells me I can remove them.
Scott says
it doesn't really bother me very much because it's readable either way.
It is.
I try not to flip flop as well because there's obviously the other one of new. If you define the type on the left hand side, you can do new, so you can benefit yourself that way. That one I prefer less. I prefer having the type to the right all the time, and I'm not happy with var. Yeah.
I use the simplified initializer a lot when it's inferred the type. So if I had a list of whatever this thing is called, list of archery result, or let's do archery round because that has a parameterless constructor. And now I'm using the object, the collection initializer syntax. Then if I'm going to add a new one, archery round dot add new, then I'm okay with doing it this way. Oh, archery rounds. So you can see here that I don't have the type.
Yeah. I think in those cases, it should be very obvious from the code that you're reading that is the way it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, it would be just as easy to. Oh no! If I was going to do add range, then don't even get that. You just get a whole bunch of these. Although that probably wouldn't work with a custom class. So never mind. Just kidding. That only works with objects.
RADIOPATRIK, if you want to call it out, you can do ! waiting when you sign the waiting room.
Oh, thank you for noticing. Here is the community day blurb. But if you are ready, RADIOPATRIK, I will pull you into the stream room. Just let me know. And when you do come into the stream room, feel free to mute the stream and listen through only Discord. And I do have my virtual camera going so you can see exactly what is on the stream in Discord. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Welcome in, RADIOPATRIK. Mic check, please.
Greetings and salutations.
Didn't I update that to allow you to put... I could have sworn I updated that. But yes, I saw your volume levels and they're good. And I just recently added a compressor filter to the Discord audio anyway, so should be good enough.
Nice.
For it.
That's been a game changer for my OBS setup and not having to fiddle with volume levels all the time. Is adding limiters to all my audio inputs, so at least the stream output, I don't have to fool with stuff too much.
Except that I haven't configured it very well because you are going a little higher than expected. Aren't you supposed to activate at -18 dB? Oh, it's compressing 10 to 1. So RADIOPATRIK, what does it mean if I am compressing audio from 10 to 1?
Without knowing units, I'm not sure, but I assume that it's
This is what it
reduction.
is. Like, I know what putting a compressor and limiter on my mixer track does in Fruity Loops, but in OBS, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a volume ratio.
So
Since there's
squash
no
the
units
volume
there.
down for everything above 18, squash it down, divide by 10, essentially.
Yeah, that would be my presumption. Or
Mine
divide by 10 towards a threshold, or towards like a cap,
Great.
minus 18.
That's what I thought it was.
I'm not an audio or sound engineer, rather. I know how to use
I kind of
Audacity,
had to learn.
and I know how to use a few things.
I just figured since you are making a radio station website, that makes you an expert in all things noise signal.
Yeah, you'd think that, wouldn't you? I know how to use Audacity. I know how to use like Reaper. I think I've used a fair bit for building content for the radio station. But honestly, I'm just I have the double-edged sword of being very technologically vanilla, for lack of a better phrase. I don't like using fancy stuff. I don't like using plugins or tools. I like doing it by hand in as minimal a fashion as possible. So most of the time that just means I can't do certain things because it requires a plugin and I'm too lazy or don't want to download that plugin to make certain things happen. Or so things just don't happen. So yeah, I definitely don't know as much about sound engineering as I probably should, or certainly wish I did.
M2. Yeah, I'm learning a lot about it recently because I just got so excited about doing music again, and it's still there, still super duper exciting. I want to do it every minute that I can, and even while I'm writing code, I'm like, oh dear, this is bad. This is how I felt about writing code, where I couldn't stop thinking about wanting to write code, or when can I get back to writing code again. I'm doing that with music now. It's kind of distracting.
Have you
work
seen
sometimes?
That's fair. There are some delightful intersections of programming and music, though. If you've ever seen, there's a band, an artist called I think it's like Look Ma No Computer, and all of his stuff is just analog synthesizers, whirring things, various noisemakers, and like he's using old analog, like genuine, piezos and noisemakers to build these synths and musical devices, as well as, if you've been around YouTube for the last, 20 years, I'm sure at some point you've seen the couple of people that have done mixes using MIDI file interpreters and making various electronics make noises. So first it was like floppy disk readers, and
cool.
there's
I think I've seen stuff like that.
Yeah, it gets wild. Pretty much anything with a little electric motor or a servo. You can set the frequency by how fast the motor spins or switches direction.
Right. Makes sense.
So I've seen everything from obviously the floppy disk drives to hard disk drives, which can double as percussion, from the clicking of the actual control arm, to printers, dot matrix printers, inkjet printers, scanners, electric toothbrushes. Like it pretty much, if it's got a motor in it, you can make it vibrate and create a tonal sound. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I love those. I love creative people.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic stuff, but it's a delightful intersection of music and programming, and something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I didn't have the money as a kid to go and be procuring floppy disk drives and microcontrollers. And as an adult, I don't know that I could find a floppy disk drive even if I wanted to.
I may or may not have one or two in a box in a room. DVD.
I have a Windows XP.
I'm too.
I'm into play old games on it
Oh, there you go.
with a floppy disk drive and the CD-ROM.
Wait, did Proton Fig delete his channel? I was gonna shout out Proton Fig, but I didn't know how spelled his. Oh, it's Proton_Fig. Okay, I am following you, right? I am. Why weren't you in my list? Good grief. Okay, so shout out to Proton Fig, who writes. Oh no, that didn't work.
Amazing.
Who writes music using I don't know what language this is, but pretty
Amiga.
much the one. Amiga, thank you.
Commodore Amiga.
Yeah.
Synth music.
So yes, writing code to write music. One thing that I did when I was in middle school was there was a QBasic elective that I took, and I learned that you can have QBasic play notes. And so I programmed a song across 4 computers and started them all at the same time and played a song.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
It was fun.
When I was learning to program, I learned that you could do /A in when you're printing strings, and it'll do a beep sound. And so I would do big for loops,
Wait,
or I'd do infinite loops and just have it spend a bunch of time beeping, and it would piss off my teacher.
When he started saying, when I first learned to program, I just said to myself, I'm about to feel old.
When I first learned to program, I was working in .NET 3.1, .NET Core 3, and TBD's like, that was about halfway through my career.
No. No.
Think about it. .NET
No.
Core 3 in 2014, 15, something like that.
.NET, no, .NET Core 3. .NET Framework 3, we're talking?
No, Core.
Core. Okay, Core 3 was...
2019.
Okay.
I started to learn how to. I had a kind of a, at least I think it's a weird programming journey, because I was reading code and like exposed to software development before I actually understood how to program, which is my own fault for not ever taking a little bit of initiative. But I started to learn how to program in middle school. I learned some Lua in the very early days of Roblox.
So this is 20.
This is 2008, 2009. Would have been. Because it was the perfect intersection of my two favorite things in the world, computers and programming and Legos.
Cool.
So it could do no wrong, because I learned a little bit of Lua, and then it was
sound off now. Kidding. Okay, go ahead.
But I'd say I more properly learned how to program teaching myself TI Basic on my TI 83 Plus and 89 Titanium graphing calculators.
Yes, I loved playing with those.
Yes.
I actually didn't learn programming until my freshman year of college. Like, that's when I was truly learning software development. Before that, like, I tinkered with a Commodore when I was born. I was about to say it a different way, but pretty much fresh into the world, my hands were on a keyboard. And played around with BASIC on the Commodore, and then QBasic, and then VB6. Yeah, VB6, and then VBA for Microsoft applications.
Nice. It always interests me, people that got started in college and kind of if they feel like they did better or worse developmentally, I guess, in terms of their capacity to learn languages and what they know and how well they know it, if approaching it in college when you've got kind of established skills broadly, if that helps you. But I also know I just be off, so I'll let him finish.
Kind of cut out at the end of that.
I think with the whole learning thing, if you want to get into programming, I don't think there's any time that's too late, because if you have that energy to go and to do it, I think you have the ability to do it. It is
absolutely.
I don't think there's necessarily a learning cap there.
I agree with you.
Because it leans more into that, like I suppose, like Legos and stuff, that creativity. I think programming is artistic in some respects. It kind of allows you to explore, what can I do and how can I push the bounds. And I think it's one of the things that fascinates me, is just because someone does something doesn't mean it can't be done again. Doesn't mean it can't be done in a different way. Doesn't mean something else can't come along, some different opinion, some different perspective. Yeah.
Mojo, energy is unlimited. I'm gonna leave it at that. I have a lot to say about energy.
Like,
just testing.
For me, sorry.
No, you're absolutely.
I was gonna say, for me, for programming, I got a Commodore VIC-20 in 1985, and I kind of tinkered with programming, BASIC on that, and I didn't get it. I was 5 years old. I didn't get it. I tried. It did fascinate me, the idea that I could do things with this machine. And I kind of tinkered a little bit with, there was in the UK, Amigas were a bigger thing than they were here. There was a game development thing called Amos, and it was a basic language-based thing, but it was kind of like a game engine before, and came on many floppy disks and had a big manual, and me and my friends would try and program games on it and stuff, with limited success.
Which I really wants to get on that topic. Sorry, go ahead.
It kept me kind of hooked on the idea of programming for years, and I didn't really get. I did little bits, picked up C++, tinkered, got a book on, got C++ for Dummies, in like
I can't learn from books, man.
94, and it's one of the things that triggered me to push further forward with programming was, I remember I was reading the thing on classes, and I'd been writing this C++ program with my friend, and it was just thousands of lines of code, just completely without function. Well, some functions, but for the most part, it was one big block of code. And I'd been reading this section on classes, and I believe it had some rabbit analogy or something like that. It was a really weird analogy, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was fast asleep, but all of a sudden I woke up. I'm like, I get it.
Those were my favorite things.
I got up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and start writing a class for the first time in C++. And then the next day, the program started evolving. And to that same respect, even 30 years ago, I was still happy to just rip apart weeks worth of code and start refactoring it into using classes. And then I went the complete opposite way and abused classes left, right, and center. but that energy, that's what kind of kept me going with programming. And then so by the time college came along, I still kind of followed the path of engineering, but then I was like, the programming thing is really fascinating, because we did robotics, and I was like, okay, now I'm sold. And I wish I carried on that a little bit. Robotics would have been fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, robotics is a lot of fun.
I only did one thing robotics wise. It was one class where we needed to do programming of sensors and stuff. We had to use the LegOS, which is what I was going to comment on, the whole Lego things. Yep. And so we programmed that to have a light sensor that was supposed to follow a path that was taped on the ground. First find the path that was taped on the ground, and then travel the path. And we called our little car thing a chocobo, because I had it also play music, because everything programming I need to do music with. And so at the end of finding it and starting the track, it played the chocobo race music, and then at the end of the loop, it played the da 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 ba 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 ba. So it's
nice.
That song just immediately went through my head.
Yep.
It's like
at first it starts off with da 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 da. That's
music.
I'm done.
Well, I have 2 qualifications that are programming related. One in object-oriented programming, which was just a partial qualification that I did as part of my college course, and one in robotics. And the robotics piece was, could I write the code to control a ginormous arm? It was a ginormous manufacturing arm, and make it pick up things and move them into positions. And so those are my 2 actual programming related qualifications. Everything else is just on my own. No degree, no actual qual.
Yeah, the thing that happened to me in college was, my freshman year was my first time outside of the house, outside of being with my parents, all that stuff. Made a ton of mistakes. Failed that year, that semester, failed the next semester, started getting in debt. Worked a lot of hours while trying to do school. Got into more debt, and just struggled with learning. I didn't understand Java. I didn't understand syntax, semicolons, curly braces, nothing. It just didn't make sense to me. And then one day the click happened to me too. I just woke up and I'm like, oh, I get it now. And then I put my big boy pants on and I just did the work needed to graduate eventually. So the thing college really taught me was perseverance and not giving up, but not necessarily how to write software. Put on my khakis. That's funny, because I wore khakis for my job just about every day. I don't really own a pair of dark slacks. Well, I guess I own 1 or 2 pairs of dark slacks. I own 2 pairs of jeans and 6 pairs of khaki pants. The Boston Dynamics. That would have worked perfectly for you, TBD.
I was on a stream the other day, and I made a donation to a charity, and I forgot to check the anonymous box. So my name popped up on the screen, and the streamer was like, "Took me a while to figure out who that was." It dawned on me.
It's just got to be nice having initials that actually spell something fun.
Fun. You should,
Oh, God.
unless it's in a work report where everything says TBD.
Like I said, fun.
TBD is going to be doing this, this, and this, and this. No. Please clarify.
So who exactly is going to be doing it? TBD. But can we decide now? We did. This. Did it kill the conversation?
I'm watching what you're doing here.
Oh, I am just trying to have Copilot create this for me, essentially.
This is where Copilot actually becomes very helpful. Is when you put stuff in comments, like if you have some data or something you want to make an object out of, you put it in comments, it'll give you the properties pretty easily. It's a very nice feature.
Archery round.
Oh, I'd over-engineer this.
Yeah, I'm just poking around in my backend stuff right now. I've been kind of going back and forth with TBD recently, and I was actually going to pop on here possibly and ask for some help, but I think I figured it out.
Oh. Poop.
Well, it's an interesting thing. So it might still be...
Do you have anything you want to share while you're talking
actual
about
input? Yeah, so, well, I've got it's a C# web API, just backend doing a minimal API, and I discovered on stream the other day that I had an absolutely obscene memory leak to the point that I think I had my program running for maybe 15 minutes, and the process memory was listed at like 1.5 gigs. It was really, really bad. So I've been kind of going back and forth with
terrible.
TBD.
I mean, like most machines have what, 60 or I was gonna say 64 gig by default now.
I mean, the laptop that I'll be running, or like, and the hardware I'll be running this on won't have that much, but also it's a service I plan on running 24/7. So I kind of need that to not be just inflating like that. And I was trying to figure it out, in a few of it, like there's probably some stuff with the HTTP client not being used as responsibly as it should have been, and not having enough like using statements and disposal happening. But I've been narrowing it down, and I discovered that even the default template for minimal APIs has a memory leak of some kind. It's down to like 1 megabyte a minute that the process memory goes up, but I've let it run for like half an hour and it still goes up the whole time.
Oh geez.
And
so never
I've just got like, this is just the template. This isn't even, I haven't touched anything. This is just letting it rock, and that still goes up. So I think I was gonna see if there's any thoughts on what I can do to mitigate that, but if it's in the template as well, I don't know that there's anything to be done about it.
Man, it's kind of hard to say like check this and that when we don't actually see the structure of the code and the resources that you're using.
Yeah, I mean, I can screen share. I keep meaning to try and put this code up on GitHub, and I just haven't. But
absolutely. Let me just verify. Give it a try.
Yeah.
I might need to give you permissions to the channel first.
Sure.
Oh.
Looks like that's working.
Yes. Okay, so I have a specific thing for popping this out so that I can share on screen easily. Give me a
Sure.
second. It is called Discord Display.
Yeah, I was getting desperate earlier. I was even just commenting out the swagger stuff to see if that would do something. But I also don't know, like, it seems to be less of a problem running in release as a like published executable on my laptop, because I have similar code running there, and it seems to be a much less, like, something else is happening, I think, but I'm really not sure.
It looks like it's there. Make it big. Nope. Like this thing right here looks like it's the Discord. Why can't I select it? Move up here. Go over here. There we go. There we go. Oh. Inverted. Welcome to One Lion's Code. Oh, wait. That's actually the Discord screen? I thought I had one for the pop-out, though. Sorry. Wait. It's not what that is. Anyway, oh, there it is. Goodness. There we go. Okay, I think people can see that. Hopefully they can read it.
Yeah, I have my font size up too anyway. I can always up it a little bit more. So I'm doing a little weird, I think, because I have a couple of these getters out in the program.cs, even though I've got functions for all the things. I don't know, I'm like trying to do basically dollar store controllers almost, where I've got callable functions to kind of tack on more endpoints instead of using controllers. That way I can kind of, I don't know how to choose to map like one controller and not another. So I just use map-get and functions and do it all by hand. But
And I don't know if
yeah,
you've seen any of these comments from Peter from LiveCoding.
Yes,
Cool.
I'm seeing some of them. I need to grab the JetBrains trial and check out their memory profiler. So all these, like the extra functions, these functions here are just adding. They're just, you know, app. Since the apps pass by reference.
And you do know
I
that
can
you're
just add
doxing
to
your
it.
password, right?
Oh yeah, this isn't publicly available.
Yeah,
it's all
yeah,
local
it's all
IPs. So, and I've got some DNS stuff and a little bit of security in place. Plus, all you can do is mess with my radio station, which isn't really properly live either. So it's okay. So yeah, all these functions are doing. So create builder just does all the app builder stuff, returns the web application variable, and then these just add the, you know, app.mapget, map post, etc. And I have a .use to throw in just, it's my really crappy logger, so that I can print who's accessing it, where and how, and what they're requesting. I'll probably do some more authorization stuff in here at some point, but I just have it. And if we ignore all that commented stuff, there's a data stream. I've got some WebSockets for as a data stream. Probably could use SignalR for this, but it's just easier. And again, I'm working with a Flutter front end, so I don't want to use any particular technologies with real like non-standard overhead, because I need Flutter to be able to work with it, and Flutter's not very flexible for things like that. So I just have plain Jane WebSockets. And then I have a little thread that listens if there's sound or people talking for other reasons, and that's not running, so we don't have to worry about it. But yeah, to break into briefly the important part, the app builder, the only things that are really running, I've got a couple of services that I've added. For my database, I have a service to share the access details, so that you saw defined earlier. I have a scope service to control the WebSockets that you saw, the slash data stream endpoint. So that way I can message and keep track of particular ones and send data to and from, well, not from, but just to specific WebSockets, or all of them, generally all of them. And then there's an HTTP client for doing web requests, and a data listener service that pings the Radio DJ software at set intervals to get updated information. Here's a little bit of complication. I know this is kind of a lot of information, and it probably would help if I had diagrams, but I'm not prepared for this conversation.
I can picture this better like this.
So there's the Radio DJ software that basically is just the media player, right? And there's a plugin for that, which all of this is closed source. I don't have access to it. I can't like swizzle it and inject any. Well, I haven't tried very hard to inject my own code yet. I'm at the point where I'm about to, but there's a plugin for that provides it a REST API to interact with in very, very, very limited ways with the Radio DJ software. So my web API not only wraps that plugin to allow for, security and etc. And also if I want to share this with people, so I don't want their existing code to break just because they're using my API. So I'm wrapping the existing stuff. I add a few convenience functions with some error checking and handling because there isn't any really. And I also add a bunch of database endpoints, like database control endpoints. That way, I can do extra things that the plugin cannot do. So that's the HTTP client is for accessing the Radio DJ plugin. And all external calls will basically go through my web API and then to the plugin API and then to Radio DJ, the program, and then back out. It's a little convoluted, but the developer of Radio DJ, in his infinite wisdom, about 3 years ago decided he didn't want to let anyone build plugins for it anymore and took away that capability. And I think everyone kind of agrees that's a terrible idea. But, it's his program. He's the one that's been developing it for free for over a decade, so he can kind of do whatever he wants. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Right now, the memory is pretty under control. It's about process memory goes up by about a meg every minute or two. And it starts off at 95 to like 105 megs, usually just as a startup cost. So it's not. I think I've gotten myself out of most danger of just exhausting RAM. I think the two main things besides the flagrant RAM issues, which I think I've fixed, is just any other things I might be missing in terms of just knowledge and things to look out for, as well as I think I might have a problem with TCP port exhaustion, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Or rather, I'm not sure if that's been fixed. As a part of me refactoring and using services instead of the slightly janky way I was doing it before. I'm being yelled at by live coding. Okay.
He's giving you a lot of feedback so far. I really do like his suggestions of finding a way to at least profile the app while it's running. I think Visual Studio does have a profiler even in Community Edition.
There is. I'm not very good with it. I'm still trying to learn. I've now begun reading documentation on how to actually use it.
Maybe. Oh, Performance Profiler. Yeah, so that's definitely a thing. Another thing that you could, it would require learning how to use it if you don't already know how to use it. Could use is Benchmark.
Okay.
It's a NuGet package. So you create a new project, add the benchmark NuGet. I really don't know how to use it, but if you watch Nick Chaps's videos, he uses it a lot. But you can essentially profile individual methods, or just check individual things so that you can see, is it this method that is not releasing memory over time or something.
Yeah.
And then the one place that I saw could be affected, how often do you read/write to your database?
As infrequently as possible, ideally only when data actually changes.
Which is?
So the writes only happen like when there's an actual change client side. So the client will, like, reads and writes only happen with very, very few exceptions. Only happen at the request of the client to make such a thing happen. And it should not be happening frequently. Like, rarely if never.
Okay.
Mostly
another question is, how often are you requesting a new DB context, is essentially what I was trying to get at. From the factory.
I don't generally. Again, it's only so I request it whenever it needs to be modified, and I do have using statements to try and dispose of that whenever it's requested. I can show you. Pull up one of these, one of my data models here. So, the data models are kind of pulling double duty. Might be a bad idea, but or kind of pulling double duty as controllers for their database tables as well. Not really sure if there's a better way to do that, or if there's a better design than that, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing on that front. I couldn't find a good way to organize like more convenient functions without just breaking it down, because the database schema is there were some choices made, and it is not great. But so I'm trying to work around that, because I can't really change the database schema.
And you're definitely showing me where it's being used, but for the callers of this, since they're passing in a DB context every time,
here.
Then how often is the DB context getting created?
So it'll be, I mean, for I guess a technically, because the DB context is a service, right? Shouldn't it only be created once, and then it's just an instance is being provided?
So here's one thing that I'm seeing then, is you have DB context factory in your program.cs, but here you're directly using an injected DB context, which means that you have a DB context that's being kept active, or maybe it's transient if you're doing it that way, or scoped. But instead here you would use DB context equals scope.serviceprovider.getRequiredService radio DJ or IDB context of or IDB context factory of radio data context dot create DB context. That was really hard to say.
Okay.
So where your cursor is, that would be an IDB context factory of.
Is there?
Aren't you getting intelligence? Yeah, of radio DJ data context.
Don't I not want to initialize that a bunch of times though? Because of memory. Oh, I gotta double bracket that.
Yeah, but that'll be, well, I mean, here's where you do the dot create, or dot, is it create DB context? Yeah, dot create DB
dot create
context.
DB context. But I guess my understanding, because this is something I got off Vanity Frameworks documentation, doing it with, providing the scope and then scope that service provider, get required service. Wouldn't this, don't I not want to initialize new instances frequently?
You won't be initializing. This does a give me any existing DB context is not in use if one is created, or create a new one. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. DB context factory is meant to be the same as, it's kind of the HTTP client factory idea.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to mention. Now that you said
it's for pooling and stuff like that.
Yeah, so using
so it's not doing anything
DB context
terribly different.
equals what you just wrote. I mean, it is, because like here, if your DB context is kept in memory the whole time and it's constantly growing, like anytime you do a create, then you're going to add more to the DB context itself. And you're going to add more
so this
changes.
Is so the existing line I had is like pseudo disposing, but it's still keeping whatever tables I loaded in to do this call in memory.
I mean,
but doing the factory.
Is your regular radio DJ data context scoped? Injection is what I meant.
Where'd that go? I gotta start remembering line numbers or putting in markers. I just use I do use add DB context factory.
Yeah, it seems like you have a regular add DB context of radio DJ context, or at least add scoped, and then you initialize a DB context in one place.
I mean, I might just be using it wrong, and it just happens to work, to be perfectly honest, because I definitely haven't changed this line since I put it in here, and I'm not using radio DJ context anywhere else.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that you could actually just request an instance of your DB context without setting it up for dependency injection, if the only thing you have is add DB context factory.
Okay, yeah.
I could be wrong.
Because I'm definitely not using this other places.
Look at my code behind that.
Okay, well, I'll have to make those changes.
Yeah, so that's one thing. The other one is, because you are getting your scoped DB context factory on every call to that, there is nothing that says only create the DB context if I need it. That was why I was asking, how often does this get called where it's instantiating or getting your scoped DB context?
Right, and that was the solution to that sounds like something similar to what TBD had suggested with my HTTP client, where instead of using a factory to make that every time I need to make a call to the plugin, just making a this web request service, which has an instance of the HTTP client, has one instance of the HTTP client, and will persist that for itself and its lifetime. And this is a scope service.
I mean, that does work. Another thing you could do for this one, just to make it a little bit more clear and easy for you to maintain, I guess, would be to make a typed HTTP client, which is essentially what you're doing with you make a class that inherits from HTTP client, something.
Yeah, that's Well, I was seeing in the documentation about making a typed HTTP client. Some of them don't inherit from HTTP client or the factory interface.
I was probably
You can
wrong
just
about
cast
that.
it. I mean, I don't know. So this is, I'm just rolling with tutorials and Microsoft Docs for this right now, and seem to be a good indicator for.
Yeah,
Or
but
this
I mean
is how
here.
it said to do it.
So you're saying that like, I'll let TBD speak for himself, but I don't think he was saying to not use HTTP client factory. Instead, he was just comparing DB context factory to HTTP client factory. Is that correct, TBD?
Yeah, I was kind of drawing the analogy that they're very close in what they're meant to do. Fun fact, we went diving in the code for HTTP client factory as we went, and it creates a new HTTP client every single time. It's just tracking a little bit more internally to try and make sure that's cleaning up properly. I'm just actually, now I'm on a deep dive of how DB context factory works over whatever. The IDB context interface says you are responsible for disposing of the DB context.
Yeah, which he's definitely doing with the using. The thing that I'm just more concerned about is that it's creating a new DB context on every call to your endpoints, even if you might not need it.
So the way the DB context factory works is it gets a new lease and returns the context created by that lease with every connection. So it's using the pool somewhere in there to determine, there's a tracked pool of entities. But don't do it at the end. Yeah, but the reason I wasn't particularly worried about because even if it was using the DB context factory, without using the DB context factory, it was still disposing of the DB context in a relatively short amount of time, and that what we weren't seeing was the drop off of the memory, which you would if you left it long enough. Those disposers are still going to catch up. Right. It should tick down a little, and it wasn't ticking down.
What is it? GC.collect. Just do that everywhere. You'll be fine.
Oh,
oh man.
Yeah. Bad advice. Bad advice.
That would not. Yeah, no. That's. I've seen enough all caps. Just like for the little bit that I've read about memory management in garbage collected languages, is generally all caps. Just don't tell it to do that manually. Switch to C++. I mean, I could. I've done all this stuff in. Well, I've not done REST APIs in C++, but I've done WebSockets before.
Yeah, but I guess like the main thing is definitely profile. Profile the app while it's running the server side. Peter, you said something about needing a specific profiler. What did you mean by that? I didn't really read the specific memory profiler, and I haven't seen one in VS.
Rust is the answer. Yeah, there we go.
Did you post a thing? Oh, Rust. Of course. Of course. Performance profiler is not of use, which Visual Studio has the performance profiler. Well, that's weird though, because part of the performance profiler is a memory profiler. So I'm going to double check that real quick. See if I'm lying to you. What do I have as my startup project? Of course, you guys won't see this because the Discord screen. But if anyone else does have any other places to check or approaches, because again, I just know that when I switched from using DB context, but this was in MVC controllers, you're using fast endpoints, right?
Yeah.
When I switched to using DB context, minimal API, yeah. When I switched to using DB context factory, I saw a pretty big decrease in memory usage. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
All right, F5.
So the way the pool works, by the way, by the looks of it, is when you go to the DB Context Factory and ask for a connection, it gives a new lease, and that lease is passed to the pool, and when that lease goes to give you the context, it basically calls rent against the pool. Someone was having fun with the names. So it rents the pool from the pool, and it tries to dequeue using, it's got a concurrent dictionary, a concurrent queue. It tries to see if it's got a spare context to hand you. So the dispose you do when you get a DB Context Factory, that's going to clear up your handle to that context. That context won't get dropped because something else has already created that context and giving you it back. So it's got that handle. So your dispose won't get rid of the reference. It'll just get rid of your reference to it, I would assume. But yeah, so that the pool is tracking that. I'm trying to confirm, because with the HTTP client, what it does internally is it creates new HTTP clients. It gives you a new one every single time, the same way as you write in new HTTP client. It then just doesn't clean it up. It cleans it up, or it knows what resources it's got to try and prevent that. How do you term it? The TCP. Is it starving or?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought I showed, or thought I've like pointed out, or whatever, figured out that there was some TCP port exhaustion the last time I was working on this, because when I ran netstat and it showed all those endpoints were waiting, then I stopped running it and they all disappeared. But I'm not seeing like the program run slower, or at least I haven't seen that yet. I'm just kind of trying to be a little more proactive about it. It's mostly just the RAM, like the memory usage that shows up in the debugger panel if I run it. Oh crap!
Yeah.
Where do I?
So I have mine running too, but let me make your screen big again.
Oh no, you're good. I just forgot which line I went and wrote that.
It was
example on.
It was in.
There we are. Comment that out. Oh, what's your problem now?
Me.
Oh yeah, crap. I'm in the middle of doing some stuff. So I can't.
I know that feeling.
I was in the middle of copying some stuff over to create this web request service that it does making all these plugin calls async. Because that was something else that was kind of making a little bit of a problem. And what may have contributed to the port exhaustion is that I was forcibly converting async HTTP calls to make them synchronous, but I was doing so by making it wait, which, yeah, I was doing this instead of async await, and this was basically making it so that no web request could complete inside of 1 second. I think I misunderstood that. Yeah, it was taking the whole time, which is
that's a
part of what I think was contributing to the port exhaustion, but also was indicative of port exhaustion, because I could never complete after maybe 2 or 3 minutes of having the website up, like the Flutter instance up and running and making requests and doing stuff. After a few minutes of that, I could not make a request complete inside of 1 second, even for very basic things. Because this used to be 1 second, and then I changed it to a tenth of a second, and it started going a lot faster. So I'm trying to convert all this stuff to async await and actually, properly await things instead of forcibly synchronizing stuff.
Right. And I mean, if you were wanting to do that anyway, then, oh man, I don't fully understand, I guess, but You could have the get async and then at the end .result, which I don't really recommend unless you are already doing .result.
Yeah, there's dot result in here, because I need to use the results. Like, it's just me being a grump and being angry at the fact that I can't do asynchronous web requests in any programming language. As soon as everyone realized you can do asynchronous things, it's just everything's async, and it forces everything in your code to then become async for very minor, like onesie twosie things. And I just hate that I can't make web requests synchronous in a convenient fashion, especially in languages that have async await patterns, and it irritates me. And so I was just forcibly making things synchronous, so that I could do synchronous web requests to this plugin. But I think it's starting to get like it's becoming a code smell, and could be part of the problem, in terms of maybe not memory usage, but port exhaustion and a few other things. So I'm in the process of converting. I could probably just comment a bunch of this stuff out.
It's just very odd to see a .wait anymore. So like I definitely do .delays, but asynchronous delays for UI stuff, but actual thread blocking .waits, maybe instead you'd want a semaphore that says you aren't even allowed to enter into this code unless, there are so many requests available.
Well, I mean, all this stuff has to happen on demand, and if I wanted to be my only real alternative to like a .wait would be to like a while. I think you can check the status, well, like async state or some other state.
That's why, like, why
and,
wouldn't you just put the response, the response line 58 with a dot result at the end of it? Since you're wanting,
I did.
Well, at the very end of the response line, like on 58, just before the semicolon, dot result.
Oh, because that that'll be null.
Or
it'll
wait, not is it dot result? The one that essentially makes it execute on that line. Does anyone know what I'm trying to say?
I guess you can't see my autocomplete. I've got an option for run synchronously. I have wait. There's like a few status things that I can check out, but none of them really help to. I guess there's continue with or configure await.
Yeah, continue with was one of the ones that I have heard. But again, I don't really do this either, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of why I just go with .wait, because it's all the same stuff. It just how well it conforms to the async await pattern.
I do like continue with better.
Yeah, because continue with lets the underlying function be still remain asynchronous, or so it'd let get async still be asynchronous. It would let my radio DJ request function still be synchronous, and then it would continue with the lambda once the async request is done. So yeah, continue with is probably a better idea, but at this point, I'm just making it all async and I'm dealing with it, and because I can make all the calling functions async all the way up. It really isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
So at this point, I may as well just fit the pattern and save myself extra potential hassle and confusion.
I do like that
by just fitting the pattern. Yeah, it's just me being a curmudgeon.
What were you saying, TBD?
So considering the way that you're using the client, I would definitely I'd embrace the async all the way.
Yeah.
It does become challenging because you get to some code and you're like, oh, it's asynchronous. Oh no, everything up above it has to be asynchronous. But in your case, it is able to be asynchronous. So
yeah, it's it's more of a hassle in clients. I find when I have to do one async thing, and all of a sudden all of this crap above it becomes async. Until I finally find some function I can, store to something or get away with it, button click or whatever. Mojo added me in chat. Unrelated to memory, mentioned earlier, I'm creating my endpoints. Are you using map group? No, I'm not using map group. I read about map group, and I got enough information out of that to tell me I should read more about map group and probably use it.
You call minimal APIs. They built them to try and make, in my opinion, they built them to make APIs more accessible, because controllers are heavy and difficult to get your head around. So minimal APIs look
even
more
API
like
controller.
Heavy. but minimal API looks more like Express.js, right? But out the box, it's more approachable, it's more appealable. And then what happened is we created a lot of structure around them. Fast Endpoints uses minimal APIs. It's just a wrapper around it to help abstract that. So we have these minimal APIs, and then we build massive applications on top of them, and they start being minimal, and they start becoming more of a management challenge. So I don't like controllers, because they become, as I always say, they become dumping grounds. They become database object aligned, and then we try to fit methods in there. And I don't like minimal APIs because the example code that we get just promotes just dumping it all in your program CS and having all your endpoints there. So that becomes more of a challenge. So then you try and put structure around that, and you get to controllers.
Yeah, so that was part of why I wanted to do it that way. It is a little bit lighter weight than controllers. Like it's a comparative thing. Even if it's not like much of a savings, it still ends up being lighter, a bit lighter. I'll try and run this real quick.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll bring your screen back up in a second, but I was trying to show, because I do want Peter's genuine response to whether or not he thinks that this profile or diagnostic tool, whatever this thing is called, in Visual Studio can be beneficial, or should you truly invest time in trying out Writer's profiling tool or memory profiler.
Yeah,
because there is that memory usage one. You can take snapshots of what it looks like at a given time, and then take another snapshot, and then it shows you what's in managed memory, what reference types you have, and the differences between memory and object instantiations. And like here, I went from 4 megs to 17 megs in 515 seconds, kind of thing. So, but yeah, as you're bringing that up, I'm going to take a quick break, but feel free to continue discussing it. I'll still be able to hear you. Hopefully you won't hear me. But I'll be right back.
No worries. So I've got, that is so odd, that it doesn't look like it's showing it on Dream Capture. Let me see. Oh, it's not even showing it on my screen share. That's so odd.
It's clearing that up. That's rendered weirdly.
Yeah, I think I think Visual Studio might consider those separate windows or something, or Windows does whole separate items. I can just show my whole screen. It's okay. There we go. So, yeah, I've been trying. One thing that also kind of confuses me, if I take snapshots, it'll say that the heap size and the objects will go down, but then my process memory is still going up. That's been confusing me a lot today. Not really sure how that works.
Well, so it always confuses me how .NET organizes that stuff, because obviously you have everything in Gen 0, and then it gets moved through these generations to try and clear it up bit by bit. So things that are initially immediately disposed get emptied out, right? But then they go through the other generations for hey, can you check on this later, please? It's just one big cycle of the garbage collector checking on what it's allowed to clean up. So if you've still got references to things, but again, your usings are so narrow there that
that was kind of what I was thinking too, that I'm using them for such short-term periods. Either I'm making a lot of them on accident, or like something's not actually getting disposed or managed properly. It also sucks because in order to really figure out, like I was telling you in chat or in my messages to you, it's hard to really test this stuff because it takes 5 minutes of just sitting here for it to be a clear trend in the process memory going up, and not just like right here. It looks relatively flat at the moment, which is odd. I swear if it is fixed right now somehow, despite nothing really being different, I'm gonna be mad.
It'll trick you into thinking that way.
Yeah, as soon as I'm off the call, it'll be like, JK lols, all your memory is gone now.
It's probably because the garbage collector would run more often now that you're streaming it. Who knows?
Yeah.
So for reference, because now I have to share, because I've just gone on a little bit of a deep dive into DB context, and now I have an understanding of factory. So when you get a DB context factory, it gives you it does pull the connections, it does pull the contexts. The lease is managed in the factory. The DB context knows about it being leased. So when you call dispose on a DB context that is leased, it just knows that it shouldn't quite clean that up yet. So when it calls dispose again later, when the lease gets rid of it, then it knows that the lease is inactive and can actually call dispose on it. So it leaves the final cleanup to the factory. Whereas if you're not getting it from the factory, your dispose is more immediate. So that's the difference.
Okay. Yeah, so my second snapshot here, you might not be able to see it on stream, but so my second snapshot says there's less objects, the heap size is down, but my process memory is at 98 megs versus the 96 from the 95 from the first snapshot.
What does
don't know how that works.
Look like? Do you have any more columns you can add there?
Nope, there's just the label. There's this counters section is pretty neat. This tab, I just kind of noticed it because it lets me know like all the connections and how many requests are made and information about that, which is kind of interesting. Didn't know that this existed at all. And I can do a little bit of tracking on my sockets and what those are doing. It also lets me know the garbage collection heap size, but that just keeps going up. I've not seen this go down in this row.
Yeah, me either.
So
I've only taken two.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking a third snapshot now, and heap is still going up. But
yeah, so
there's
I don't know
this
if I'm
number
just
in parentheses. Oh, that shows the difference. Okay.
Yeah, we can see a pretty clear trend up now. Hitting about the 6 minute mark, we can see a pretty clear, shallow but upward trend.
Which one, Bun?
In my process memory panel here on the right. And so it's 92 to 102, so that's 10 megabytes in 5 minutes. Which, again...
I've got a feeling Phil Schnabel's a lot more experienced in the actual analysis of this stuff, but it's the difference between them, like figuring out the difference between how many allocations happen and how many deallocations and what those were.
Yeah.
Give you more insights into. It's not just Oh, the numbers drop. The numbers drop, but the memories increase. The things that were allocated and deallocated.
Okay. Yeah, because that's kind of where I'm at this point. It's such a small increase in memory, like process memory, that I'm beginning to wonder if it's just, you know, does this number not mean what I think it means? Should I be looking at different numbers? Like, I genuinely don't know. I've just been operating on the process memory and seeing that go up and assuming something's wrong, but it might not be. Or it could be like, okay, maybe this has to run for an hour and then I'll start to see it drop again because the heap's we're waiting for the heap to get large enough for it to get garbage collected. I'm not really sure how that works, whether garbage collection is timer based or if it's dimension based or if it's just in some other metric or determination.
Well, the thing that's odd to me is that I have pretty much a straight line for my process memory. It's been at 151. Now it just made it to 153, even though my heap has shown that it's grown a lot more than that. So
okay,
I don't think they're really correlated.
And so if I change, so I've got this other project in my solution, web application 1, and it's just it is pure. This is just the template, right? I've changed nothing. It's got Swagger, but that's it. And if I run that, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If we let that go for a minute, we'll show the process memory and take some snapshots. But
right, and it'll go up and up.
That'll still go up at about the same scale. So that's where my real confusion comes into play, and where I'm starting to really doubt whether I even have anything wrong. Because
and actually, I think you would get
template, right?
Yeah, you get symbology on the profiler as well. You see how you have that yellow down thing? The text for that is GC, so you would know when the garbage collector is actually running. Yeah. And again, I was joking about using garbage collector.collect, and Snobble's like, well, you should use that. So if you're actually being serious about it, Snobble, because it's really hard to take you seriously when you joke all the time, just so you know, then provide more information on how to mindfully use gc.collect or whatever method off of GC. Maybe it's not gc.collect that you should be doing. Maybe you actually do some kind of if gc. Some other method that I don't know about, then gc.collect. Juan Van, you said something about it doesn't implement iDisposable, but what exactly are you indicating it isn't implementing iDisposable? Which also makes me want to ask you, RADIOPATRIK, do you have any classes that are getting instantiated that do not implement iDisposable that you might need to? Because you're using usings in the places it looks like you need to, so that's disposing the resources you're using, but what about the objects that are using those resources too?
Well, all the usings that you would have seen are going to be in like the application builder, .map get or map post. So those aren't really, they're just lambdas at the end of the day, and everything else at this point are services. So the only thing that would be using the disposables is either, so this WebSocket service doesn't use any of the disposables. The data context is a disposable itself and managed by the builder, or managed by the web app.
There's a lot of information about that.
Yeah, HTTP client, same thing, and even its internal, over here, it's, according to the documentation, like Microsoft documentation, this is how you do typed HTTP clients using iHTTP factory, or rather typed factories, I guess. For this, there's a page. It's like how to use iHTTP factory for resilient
I remember looking
data
at it
calls.
before, but I just got rid of all the information after I no longer needed it.
Yeah, so like if for anyone that's playing along at home, if you look at that, this is that's what I'm using as reference. It looks similar to the 2 or 3 other Microsoft documents on similar topics around HTTP client and HTTP client factory, or well, iFactory, as well as a few other third-party blogs that I've read do similar things and say that it's good. So I'm gonna assume that whatever it does for this HTTP client here, in the service itself that is managed by the web application in and of itself. And then the data listener service is the only one that could potentially not be disposing of disposables, but that's a hosted service, so it should, again, its scope should be managed by the lifetime of the app, if memory serves. And it's a background service, which I
nice
think...
pun.
Yeah, background service is iDisposable, so it's also iDisposable. So yeah, I think everything that could be disposable is disposable. And also managed by something besides me implicitly.
Right. Yeah, it's just if any of your custom classes do access resources that aren't getting properly released when your class is terminated, when your class is discarded.
Gotta be.
But yeah, I mean, it's not like a massive amount, but I can see where this could be an issue. I guess what Peter said just recently, is muted by the way, was try hitting that endpoint one of your endpoints a couple of times and see what happens to your memory. See if that drives it up faster, because if you're getting a lot of requests from users in the end and it's pushing that up, then that's going to be a big issue in the long run, unless the garbage collector doesn't kick in this early, and maybe that's what you're seeing. There's no need for the garbage collector to kick in until 500 megs or something.
I'll just hit this like a bunch of times. And I mean,
we're not seeing anything happen.
Well, because I'm zoomed out real far. If we reset the view.
Yeah, only a little.
Zoom out once or twice. Yeah, we'll see a little bit of a small jump, but this is the template, so it's not going to jump a lot. See if we hit it again a bunch, and if it jumps again. Because something that I was finding was in my API is it would jump a little bit and then it wouldn't jump again. And it looks like the same thing's happening here, where it jumps a little bit and then it's holding back on the same.
And your service is running on Kestrel, right?
Yeah.
So he already, Juan he already has a console then for free. Plus he has the debugger output.
Yeah. I think I am starting to feel a lot more like I'm just seeing things.
Yeah.
And seeing misinterpreting a problem. I'm kind of feeling like there isn't one, especially if you don't see anything wrong, like overtly wrong with my code, and TBD doesn't. I
mean, it was the only thing that I saw was just the usage of DB context, or actually there was no usage of DB context factory in the long run. You're just getting the context directly. Unless that's changed. Unless when you request now a DB context, you are getting a DB context from DB context factory, since that's the only service you're registering. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can change it. It's not a huge deal to change it to factory, just be more explicit.
Right.
And actually, I'd always rather err on the side of that.
Show that create method again. That uses DB context.
Oh yeah. So,
because I'm curious, could you just pass the DB context factory, and that's the thing that decides whether it wants to that method. Where's the cart data model dot create?
So yeah, it's getting passed into here.
So if string is null or white space, name you're throwing a an exception. You don't need a DB context then if you're just going to throw the exception. But then you are doing a query immediately. So in most cases,
True.
you're not going to hit the exception. So not that one. How about get all? Probably using the DB context immediately. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
There's no validation. I figured it'd be safe anyway because it's a pass by reference because it's an object.
Oh yeah.
So there wouldn't be any worries about any kind of copying or shenanigans in any of the data model functions or data model methods rather, by passing it in. And I wouldn't have to worry about
danger, though,
the data model disposing things.
You could put yourself in a position where maybe you're doing a get first and then a create for whatever reason, and you're passing in the same DB context to both. There is a potential for you to run into a situation where you are, I think the exception is something like, oh, just slipped out of my brain. It was at the forefront, which is why I was stalling to try to say it. Multiple.
No, I mean there's a race condition of
error.
sorts. Yeah. I totally get that, and I'm kind of sidestepping that by saying right now there's not going to be like a bunch of clients doing a bunch of changes. Plus, this will all be hosted per radio station, so unless you've got like 100 different people modifying your radio station like tracks and content at the same time, which you shouldn't, but if you do, then that's kind of a whole other. You shouldn't be using free software if you've got something of that scale going on. So I'm kind of giving myself a bit of a cop out in that regard.
Nice. Well, I allow it. Juan Van wants to know what your HTTP base factory looks like. So he's injecting a typed HTTP client.
Yeah, I'll scroll back up to it. So I have not that one. There we go. So add HTTP client. I'm doing a typed factory, and it's just, I guess the constructor's just given a client. I don't know. This is all pretty implicit, like behind the scene, this stuff that gets given to it. I don't know where this HTTP client comes from. I'll be honest, it's just there. In the same way that any controller can be given this stuff as part of the constructor. So this is how I was told to do it. Yeah, Juan, that was so that's something that I've already been kind of thinking about as maybe not a memory issue, but a problem anyway, because that was something that I saw a couple days ago, is some likely TCP port exhaustion. I need to test still. I've been focusing on the memory leak a bit more, but I'm hoping that this set handler lifetime here will help manage the port exhaustion a little bit. Because the default is like 2 minutes, and I definitely don't need to maintain a connection for 2 minutes. It's either gonna work or again relatively immediately, or it's not. Especially since that's, in theory, the host that is running this web API will also be running Radio DJ, so it'll likely be a local host call to get to the plugin. So it really shouldn't take that long. If you're still hung after 30 seconds on a local host call, even if you have to go through a router and back, it shouldn't take that long.
Excuse me.
But I do a lot of calls in sequence. So just to show you, I have it commented out, so you have to pardon me on that. But so this is that data listener service that I've got right now when it's running. I only have one call going, but I'll uncomment this so you actually get colors and stuff for clarity. But I'm querying several endpoints, so this is an HTTP request, this is a request, that's another request, this is another request. So I'm doing, 4 or 5 requests, and I'm more planned and I'm doing all of them in sequence right in a row. So I do kind of want to take advantage of factory, and in its client pooling, so that I don't have to have several clients to make sure things happen in a timely fashion. And also take advantage of whatever optimizations behind the hood or under the hood Microsoft has managed to do with the factory. So that's kind of why I'm sticking to it instead of doing just a client singleton, or something, because that was what I had before. Basically, was just a client singleton, and then I changed it to a service, and it really didn't get any better. And I'm trying it out as a typed service, and it looks a little better. I think I'm interested to see how my memory needs change using the database context factory instead of the context itself. But I think port exhaustion is probably the main problem, because the initial memory leak was definitely that I didn't have enough using statements for a lot of this stuff, and I thought that when the function scope ended, it was just disposed of. So the database context and the HTTP client. So all these maps, like I didn't use using for the HTTP client in these instances, and I didn't use, same with if I needed to get the database. I thought that when the scope variable went out of scope, it would kind of take its contents with it, too. And it didn't. So just imagine I have like 100 endpoints, and I have over 100 endpoints, and just imagine if you call all of them once, even, and they'll all have an undisposed a combination of an undisposed HTTP client, database context, or both. And there's no way to dispose of them. So yeah, to go back through and adding using statements to all of them really dropped the memory usage a lot. But yeah, I think it's a fair conclusion at this point that what I'm seeing isn't a problem in terms of the process memory usage. And I just need to be more aware of HTTP stuff if that shows back up.
Right. Is there actually dispose on the HTTP client?
So technically, of course, TBD's gone for this. He could probably talk about it better. But technically, HTTP client is disposable. There's a .dispose function, of course. And
or async disposable even.
It's well, there's like the using is supposed to dispose of it, but sometimes it doesn't, which is why it's encouraged to use the factory instead of the client, at least particularly for like if you're not doing like one-off calls, you should use the factory instead of the client. So if you're doing like a console UI or something, and you need to have a couple of persistent connections to use HTTP client then and dispose of it yourself. But yeah, for something like this, it encourages factory, just because then the factory does all that stuff behind.
But you could still call dispose in a similar way that you would do the dispose in a DB context factory.
You could
for a specific DB context.
The implication I got was that there's a risk, and I don't know, I could be incorrect, but what I read was you're not supposed to call dispose on HTTP clients you get from the factory, and you should use using because of where it differs and how it differs to the factory, like overloads or something. But there's a risk of closing out an HTTP client and genuinely disposing of it, and then it's not available anymore. and now your factory, instead of having 6 HTTP clients, it's only got 5 for you now. I that was kind of the impression that I got from some of what I was reading. I don't remember exactly what it said, so I could be wrong.
And Juan Van posted a couple of resources that might help.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in those.
I know I've got it open. That using HTTP client
HTTP
factory.
Client. Yep. Well, that was the one that Peter posted, and then Juan Van posted one, HTTP client guidelines for .NET.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I'll have to look at those. But yeah, there's something up with.
What's so bright?
Yeah, here we go. Though it implements iDisposable, HTTP client does, declaring and instantiating it with using not preferred, because then when it's disposed of, the underlying socket is not immediately released, deletes the socket exhaustion. Yeah, this is a lot more like multi-threading than I thought it was.
Exhaustion.
Yeah, so factory does a little, because it's got the overloads or the overrides, does some socket management.
But I mean, this,
I guess,
like, if I heard what you said, and I'm trying to find it too so I could read it, but I'm terrible at reading when I'm listening at the same time.
Oh no, you're good.
It said that using on a HTTP client leads to socket exhaustion or TCP exhaustion.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. The issue isn't really with HTTP client, but with the default constructor for it, because it creates a new concrete instance of HTTP message handler, which is what creates the socket exhaustion and DNS change issues, because HTTP message handler doesn't do it or something. Is this disposable? It's not. Oh, it is disposable, but I guess it, because it wraps around it, doesn't do the management, so the socket is left. So your options are
you're not going to hit the all 100 endpoints at the same time, right? So
true.
Like when I'm reading this, it sounds like you should not be using even in those API endpoints that you are using.
Yeah, like I should be replacing. Well, that's why. So the plan is to be moving a lot of this stuff. Like I won't be using HTTP client in these map calls at all. I'll be getting an instance of the web request service, and then the service will have a persistent HTTP, like a single client for itself, and it'll do that management. And it'll be going through the factory as like a jumping point. So that way I'll be able to get rid of all these usings in my mapping lambdas. And like at most I'll just have the one using for web request service, and that's it. That way
I'm wholly unfamiliar with doing the using scope equals. I mean, not wholly unfamiliar. I have used that if I'm doing stuff like seeding a database.
Yeah.
In an actual or API endpoints type of situation, if this is the only way to get dependency injection to work, is by grabbing a new scope or getting a scope from services.
Yeah. This is kind of where maybe controllers might have been the way to go. And doing controllers for, all these add endpoints functions I have, I'll just have a controller for it. And then figuring out how to add specific controllers and, allow users to set flags to control or choose which controllers they add or they have mapped, probably might have been the way to go, because then it's just a matter of, I make a constructor with a parameter for any of the services that I need and just kind of leave it up to D# to figure itself out and manage all of that. But this is just kind of where I'm at right now.
And I just realized I can move the pop out OBS screen onto my main screen so it doesn't look like I'm just looking off to the side, ignoring you. because that's where it was.
No, you're good. But yeah, the HTTP client, yeah, because I think that's at this point the main thing. That's why I threw the where'd it go? The set handler lifetime to 30 seconds to help mitigate. Because even though, yeah, sure, I won't be doing calls to every endpoint at once, but or to all of my endpoints, but the HTTP client is for my API to go to the plugin, and
Right.
it's in particular for that data listener. That data listener is looking for live feed information. So some of the stuff can't be just provided. Like I've got the WebSocket, so Radio DJ can push out information, or also the API can push out information. And you don't have to use long polling, but there's no such element for the plugin. So I have to do long polling to give that information to the WebSocket. So it is going to be going I think of it once a second. I could probably reduce it to once every 5 seconds, but at that point you're looking at a noticeable difference to when you hear a song change and you see a now playing UI update. 5 seconds is probably the most I would want to ever have it be. And I'd rather that if it takes 5 seconds, I'd rather that be a client UI problem than a me limiting them on the back end problem. So right. I'm doing long polling on my end, and that's using a lot of the HTTP client. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4 requests every second with the HTTP client.
And anytime I hear long polling, I keep thinking, that sounds like a good place to use gRPC or Signal or.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be perfect, but unfortunately, the plugin doesn't facilitate that.
Right.
And yeah, that's like 90% of it, because at this point, yeah, it'd be a lot easier if I could just get this information right from Radio DJ, but I can't. So I have to do some dumb, annoying things to work around those constraints.
I've definitely seen those types of work, or had to use those types of workarounds in a work product. But the oh man, there was the thing that I saw with that. Oh, you were saying that the actual Radio DJ software thing, the third party one, does have an API that you could use, or you could tell it to call out to another API, but it only does very limited things, and none of those things are the things that you're trying to get to using this polling method.
Yeah, so you've got the Radio DJ Pro desktop program, and there's a plugin that you can get for it that allows it to host a REST API, and then my web API pings that REST API, which has direct integration to the desktop program.
Which is cool, but I thought you were saying something about the desktop app sending API messages out. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it can't.
Okay.
I wish it could, but it only has just regular REST endpoints, and all it can give me is the stuff I have up right now. And all of these are there's a few functions it can actually do, but most of this is just get information. And it definitely doesn't do a lot of the stuff. I can't create playlists. I can't create there's a bunch of content I can't create or otherwise change about the radio station broadly through the plugin, the API plugin. So that's mostly why I'm making this whole thing, is because then you can do a lot of construction of content that originally you can only do if you're sitting at the computer that the desktop application is running on.
Peter's here.
I'm here testing the voice. I'm on a new headset, which is not a better headset, but it is a new headset. And I just keep
And it is
filibustering so you can adjust sounds
Yep.
and words and many words,
good.
and there are many things I'm
We're
saying.
good now. It was slightly quieter, but we're good now.
Okay. So, hello. And I wanted to chime in. I've been obviously chiming in on chat.
You've been chiming in this whole time, but chat doesn't count.
So the core problem. So if you were to describe, I want to focus on like what is the problem? Because we have hypotheses that we've been hopping through with you. Like, you know, it's port exhaustion, which is impossible to prove, by the way. It's not impossible, but man, is it tough. Port exhaustion is one, which might be caused by the HTTP client, or it could be the DB context is loading over time. Who knows, right? So what is the problem? Like, starting from scratch.
So the original problem was when I like a week ago, I ran my API and I looked over after about 10 or 15 minutes and I saw that in the diagnostic view on the right side there, that column, it said that the process memory was like 1.5 gigs, and it definitely shouldn't be that way.
Okay. So memory is one problem. And you mentioned port exhaustion, which is real, by the way.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway, it's crazy. You sound like a crazy person, but it is real. So where does that come in? Is that a separate issue?
It's a separate possible issue that I don't know how it contributes. I don't think it contributes to that process memory symptom, but it's something that I think can be fixed as in the process of attempting to fix the process memory issue.
Let me ask, you also mentioned something about something taking a minute at some point because of async synchronous stuff.
Oh yeah, I was using .wait to force HTTP requests to become synchronous, and I in the .wait you can pass in a timeout value.
Okay.
And it was completing, and it wasn't producing errors as far as I could tell, but it was taking the full length of that timeout value to complete.
Right. So that's really
which is
great.
part of the support for TCP port exhaustion.
Yeah. That's why I assume. Okay, so if your main problem is the memory, the other people, not me, mentioned that the DB context, the way you're spinning up those DB contexts, or the singular one, I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, the way you're doing it is causing probably either a memory leak or how do I say this? Unpredictable memory growth. Even if it is eventually garbage collected,
but it's kind of predictable though at the same time. It's an observed pattern where it's increasing a couple megs every 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm at now. It's not rampant runaway memory usage. Yeah. It's a distinct increase at a very small amount, but a distinct and clear increase over time in process memory usage. It's like a megabyte I think it's about a megabyte a minute.
I will say, like, how do I say this very carefully? Whatever tool you use, which by the way, it does look like the Visual Studio memory usage tab has maybe enough info. You've got to be able to drill down, but drill down into which objects, because what I'm expecting to see is like a bunch of things connected to the entity framework DB context. That's what I'm expecting to see if you were to analyze the difference between A and B. The only difference you're going to see is a bunch of those. So something I think y'all mentioned, I guess I'm just going through this because it bothered me that y'all were talking about like up the memory profiler and you were just looking at the graph but not really exercising the app. So here's the perfect memory profiler test. Let me state it. It's multiple steps. Step 1, you open the app and you run one of everything. Just run everything you can in the app. It kind of warms up. Just think about all the singletons that your app might start. Spin them all up. Exercise every part of your code you can. Obviously, you can be as lazy as you want, but the idea is just get as much into memory as possible. After that, make sure there's no activity happening. You take snapshot 1. So you're getting a baseline of like everything that is being loaded into memory once, because the app is loading, happens before your first snapshot. That's the goal.
Right.
Then you send exactly one, you do exactly one thing. Like in this case, what I saw Postman hitting Postman endpoint. You hit that Postman endpoint once, and then you take snapshot 2. And this will limit your blast radius. And ideally, like if this is a well-behaved web app, between snapshot 1 and 2, you will not have anything.
Right.
That is because you've already initialized everything, and then you do one web request. It should dispose everything. I will also say y'all were poo-pooing the idea. Fuel was saying like do a GC collect or whatever. Y'all were poo-pooing.
Yeah.
He's the voice of reason.
Well, the reason that I was poo-pooing it is because I said use GC collect everywhere as a joke.
Oh, okay. Well, my point is, I think the JetBrains tool, or maybe it was the one I used before them, like Dot Profiler. It was someone you've never heard of. Anyway, it worked great for WPF apps. The one we used had a GC collect button. So you honestly want, before either snapshot, you want to do GC collect 1. You want to get first snapshot. You want to run a request GC collect 2 and get another snapshot. That is ideal. That I'm pretty sure is in the JetBrains tool, but I haven't run it in years. Copy audio. Duka Soft says, "Are we supposed to be listening?"
So I'm hoping it's only my headphones in, my Bluetooth headphones. My hair is getting in the way of it. It's blocking the antenna.
Yeah, I think at this point the main, I guess, point of confusion is because you're right. There's definitely like a more structured battery of tests that can, should, and are going to be done. What my confusion and part of what we were kind of talking about for, I guess, the last 45 minutes was if I take the Microsoft provided template for a minimal web API, so no database context, no anything, there's one endpoint, and it doesn't do any kind of requests, it's just there. It provides like a serialized static instance, whatever, basic stuff. That also, if you let that run, the process memory goes up steadily, but very, very slowly.
That's problem number 3, by the way. You're introducing another problem which doesn't affect you. That's mean to say that, but it is.
No, you're right.
I know what you're saying. This might be the core problem, is that minimal APIs do it. I don't think. First of all, I do think, and I said this, you just let it run, set up a job to hit the hello world endpoint over and over, do it 1,000,000 times, come back, and it should be under 500 megabytes, somewhere in that range, for an ASP.NET web app. But I do expect
the port would be exhausted.
grow. But that he's not talking. He's talking about the minimal API.
Yeah, the template.
The template is growing in memory. Every .NET app grows in memory up to a point, and then it should get stable. That's my point.
Okay.
There should be a level of stability based on how many libraries are loaded into memory, and of course, how much data loaded into memory.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of the thought that I was coming to as well. Before you hopped in, was maybe I'm just not letting it run long enough, and I'm can't see the forest for the trees,
So
and need to let it go further.
the port exhaust, I think there is like a confluence of things, and you want to fix up a bunch of things. But if you're troubleshooting this, and let's say production is down and you need to fix this, it's like just focus on the one thing you know might fix it. Like, let's say you're having out of memory problems and it's crashing the website every 2 minutes, which we've had, or 3, I think. I think we had it restarting every 3 minutes. It was great. It was a great time. So if you're having that kind of problem, try the DB context thing, which everyone is sure is an issue. Am I right? 1-1? The
Not
DB
necessarily,
context
because
thing
now I'm
has never-
like, how is he even requesting a DB context from the service provider, from the what is it called, from the dependency injection container, if he's only registering DB context factory? Does that mean that
There,
it is in the backend using the DB context factory to create a new one, or get one if it's, I don't know.
I think
would-
it's still bad. Don't do it, and get your get it into the standard. And if you found sample code, shame on them if they do it that way. And by the way, I want to promote my Monopoly.net project using the original Entity framework from 2013-14, and it had the cleanest controller actions. You know what? I'm gonna go find it. All right, talk amongst yourselves.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, what I've got on stream here, this using DB context get required service for 494. That is this is example code from Microsoft and from Entity Framework. So if it's not supposed to get done this way, and if it's supposed to get done like how 1-1 suggested, then double shame on them for not having updated updated stuff and saying bad things. I mean, I have no problem going through and changing all this stuff, all the data context requests, and I'll probably end up moving a bunch of stuff and doing something similar, service-wise, as I did with the web requests. So I only have to have the one HTTP client and then also have the one database context. But I'll try it out first, because I don't know if we want to keep the one context persistent, because it'll get bloated and everything.
I'm trying to read about this, but it's so weird that you don't have a regular add DB context or add scoped of that type of radio DJ data context. It's blowing my mind. I want to test it.
I just want, back in the old days of when I was in college and doing web stuff and doing like just PHP requests, and I can do whole database stuff through just giving URLs, and like I'd rather just do that and let me worry about the mapping. I don't need it. I don't need any of this fancy Entity Framework stuff. At most, I just need mapping.
PHP and MySQL.
Yeah.
Your
That's match
Yeah,
made in
but then
heaven.
you need
You're
a
ready for
good
Ruby on
driver that
Rails.
works.
Hey, lots of good things to say about it. Anyway, what does this program CSA?
We saw it like 1,000
Um,
times, and it's still it only has a DB context factory.
Yeah, program. Oh, let me comment this back out, because it's not actually running right now.
I have a feeling there has to be something, because you can't resolve a service unless it's registered. Can you search your project for Is it IDB context? Or
I know
is
in
there-
this case it would be the radio DJ context directly.
search for I don't know, DB context or
Stare.
I mean, there's gonna be a
Staring.
this radio DJ data context.
Yeah, that. Stare.
Okay.
Where's the dot
I'll make
ads
that
for it?
bigger. I can't
So-
really font size up the results, but
This
It's
that is an
passed in as a
extension
reference.
method. That add DB context factory is an extension method. It's not just registering a single service. It's doing stuff. And I
Right.
don't know why it exists, but it's doing
Scroll down.
stuff.
Not in there. In the search results.
Oh, you
and-
want to
yeah.
look at
Sorry. So all this data model stuff, I'm just gonna collapse the whole data models area
Yes.
because that's all passed by reference.
Yep.
And then this is the context initialization itself, if you wanted to
Okay.
see that. But then in every other use, there's the context factory,
Oh wait,
and then every
you
other
have to-
place uses it the same way.
does Entity Framework auto map? I'm sorry to use that phrase. Does it automatically register every concrete class with in its service registry? You see what I'm saying? Like there's a
I
ISO
don't see
framework.
what you're saying.
No,
I
it
use
sort of
context.
does.
It
Yeah, yeah.
sort of does because
Uh-huh.
maybe that's how it's working. Like I don't. Why?
Yeah.
Why am I saying maybe?
Well, so it doesn't auto map.
Auto
Like
register.
it can, but I'm not making it. So it only registers the tables and classes if they're set as these properties, the DB sets. I don't do anything special for configurations or options because I don't need to, didn't want to, and I'm just doing one-to-one database table mapping. And then I just use attributes for specifying, the various things to assist it in mapping, in doing that mapping. So it's not fully auto mapped, but it's kind of auto mapped. Auto mapped with assisted mapping, I guess.
Blazing Vesker. Answer is no. Good luck.
An STM board. I don't even know what an STM board is.
That's two
On the
no's.
side.
All right, Radio Patrick, can you answer Blazing Vesker's question?
Do you know how to program an STM board from Platform IO? If I
Just say,
wanted to look up right now, I
you
could figure it
answer
out.
it in 3 minutes? Can you answer it in 3 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of board programming like that. I don't know how to use that particular service. And yeah, no.
Good luck.
I don't,
Just
I,
tell him good luck. It's a pretty
So
random question for a .NET.
An
That's a super random question.
STM seems like the similar type of device as any other microcontroller.
yeah.
Right, we tried. Right, back to it. So here we are. We're running out of time, and I got to get my stand up. So I'm just going to summarize. Troubleshooting, you've been throwing out a ton of hypotheses. I do this too. I say I have 9 bad ideas for every good one. So just keep throwing them out, but be ready to throw out the ideas. I also will say I recommend you attack one of those ideas at a time for the most part. Like removing async await, or the other way around. Adopting the
Implementing it
natural
properly.
async.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I still say DB context should be switched, but it's hard to find documentation that's updated. Maybe you're doing updated stuff. But I would just say, like, troubleshooting, try to attack a single hypothesis at a time. Your hypothesis is it's port exhaustion. So attack that as well as you can. Or attack the hypothesis it's RAM. Or attack the problem of the 60-second timeout, which is weird. Just don't try and mix them all in. Like, try and ignore it as best you can. And that's all. And I do have to give my stand up, and I have to have my and on the Hangout button. Oh, anyway, this week I went down memory lane and looked at my 10-year-old Monopoly.net code. I commend it to your attention, all of you. 10 years old. Was testing out Entity Framework. Wow. I did some
Never actually
advanced
clicked on it.
ASP.NET filter stuff to load a DB context of sorts. Then I would save that DB context at the end of the request. It was very advanced. With that said, no blockers.
Oh, dang. And there he goes. Okay, so Radio Patrick, if you haven't been here for the approaching the end of the stream yet, then I do like to ask anyone that is talking to give a stand up for what they did throughout the week, what they're doing today, what they're doing for the rest of the week.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess this week has been split. I've been doing a little bit of work on obviously my radio station backend. However, there's been a moderate to significant blocker in that I am still getting ready to move to Utah in the next 2 weeks. So that coordinating everything for that has been a pretty big time sink. And prevented a lot of significant progress, but I have things set aside that I'll probably be able to get a good chunk of work done today, and and then this weekend in general. So I think I can get this pretty well settled in the near future.
Awesome. And my stand-up is that I will be stopping the stream so that the video can post to YouTube, and then I will start the work stream after about 10-15 minutes and work for the rest of the day on writing unit test and integration test for the data utility library. I don't have any blockers on it. It's starting to just go forward. And if blockers do come up, then we'll handle them on stream. That's my stand-up. So any last words from you though, Radio Patrick?
To throw it back really far. Oh yeah, no, I just stopped streaming. No, I'm here. I'm really not a fan of those different constructors that you were showing. The just new parentheses. No,
yeah. I don't mind them. I really don't.
Type in there, but no thanks.
I like writing less. What about when you get to your new place? Will you be streaming again? And if so, more often, less often, same amount?
I'm gonna try to. Obviously, there'll be a bit of a adjustment period because not only will I be in a long-term, basically hotel room for a couple of weeks while I get an apartment.
Yeah, right.
But I will be starting a brand new job on the 9th.
Wow.
And so there's going to be all of that adjustment. So I would say I wouldn't expect more streams. I don't know, it'll be an ebb and flow as I move and get to places and I'm in between stuff, but it'll probably take a little bit to settle back into an actual routine and in a reliable pattern.
Understandable. All right then. Well, good luck continuing to get ready. When are you actually making the drive?
I'm spreading it out. I'll be leaving on the 17th. And then visiting basically a bunch of friends that I have in between Pennsylvania and Utah.
So we might yet see you a couple more times if you aren't super busy.
Yeah, I'll probably be around chat here and there.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for being on stream. Thanks for sharing your project and giving us something cool to talk through.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for your thoughts and input, of course. And I mean, eventually I'll have this on GitHub for a more proper review, but I haven't gotten it there yet. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'll catch you later.
Awesome. Yep. That was Radio Patrick, and Peter was in there, and before that we saw TBD, who had to leave for some meetings or just to relax even. Who knows? I'm gonna go to this screen, but Juan Van, he's traveling from Pennsylvania all the way across the world, United States to Utah. So that's gonna be fun. Anyway, I'm gonna end the community day stream. I'm not rating out because I will be starting up my regular workday stream. I gotta be honest, I totally didn't realize that I started an hour earlier for community day. I've been so used to just starting the stream an hour earlier than my normal schedule. So it was just kind of normal for me to be like, oh yeah, here we are, 9:30, push the start button. Even though that cut into an hour of my workday. So I'm still only gonna go for another 3 hours from now and end my workday then. I just won't bill for the extra hour. Anyway, so I will see you then if you want to come back. Probably 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to do the setting up of the stream stuff and then push the start button again with a countdown timer for when I'm actually going to start. I'll be working, like I said, on integration and unit tests, and hopefully implementing the last bit of this data utility library. It feels like it's this close, but we'll be done by then. Push the button. Okay. Ciao for now. And yeah. See ya. I forgot to start the waving earlier. Now I have to make up for that time too. I'm going to turn the music up anyway.